Well, hello, everybody. I'm Yun Cannon, and welcome to today's Entrepreneur Roundtable discussion. We are tackling the topic of overcoming the challenges of building your dream team so you can scale your business growth. And so, whether you're a business owner with 50 employees, or maybe you're a law firm owner and you're just trying to move from 3 employees and grow them to a team of 10. So wherever you're at in the journey of building your dream team, we want to help you tackle the specific challenges today. So we know that what you go through as an SMB owner is different than enterprise companies. So you've got different constraints, different challenges. And so we're going to tackle that. We're going to talk about, the specific challenges of attracting top talent, like, how are you going to stay competitive to companies who can offer higher pay, or how can you fund the new hires that you need to scale your business growth. That's a challenge for SMB owners. And how are we going to find the right candidates, especially now in the midst of, we're in a job seekers market, and it can be tougher. The talent pool might seem a little smaller than usual. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to manage the overwhelm of the hiring process as a small business owner, and how can you have the confidence that you're hiring the right salespeople, especially for many of you who your business might have a longer sales cycle. So got to wait around for them to start building their book of business. We're going to talk about that and much, much more, addressing common mistakes to avoid when you are trying to scale your business growth. So I want to say, if you have had any of those challenges, you're in the right place. So I'm Yun Cannon. I am the founder of ParamountBusinessCoach.com. I help entrepreneurs to be able to grow a thriving business. And I do that to, helping you with either mastermind groups or one-to-one mentoring. And I'm here today with 2 seasoned entrepreneurs. I'm very excited to talk to Mark McLaughlin and Rod Collins. And they're going to share with you how they tackled a lot of these same challenges in their own businesses. So I'm very excited to have them on board today. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. So before
It's good to be here.
Yes, before I we go right into it, I do want to introduce the audience to who you are, so people can connect with you as well after our conversation. So let me introduce Mark. Mark McLaughlin is the founder of McLaughlinVentures.com, and he helps companies in the real estate industry with your execution strategy, your strategic planning, mergers and acquisitions. And so Mark's experience in scaling businesses, it includes buying Pacifica Union International in 2009. And then Mark turned around and sold it 10 years later for, just chump change, 122 million. So that's pretty exciting. Love to hear more about that. And so Mark is a graduate of the University of California, and he currently resides in Jackson, Wyoming. So got a lot to share with us about those buffaloes back there, right?
Thank you very much. That's a beautiful introduction.
And my second seasoned entrepreneur guest I want to introduce is Rod Collins. So Rod is an author, he's a keynote speaker and leading expert in self-managed organizations, which is probably a new concept for a lot of us, right? So Rod is a regular blog contributor to Substack, and he explores how technological innovations continue to transform the rules of how successful businesses work. So he's also the author of Wiki Management, a revolutionary new model for rapidly changing and collaborative world. Rod is also the former chief operating executive of Blue Cross Blue Shield, a federal employee program. It's one of the nation's largest and most successful business alliances. And under Rod's leadership, the business experienced the greatest 5-year growth period in a 60-year history. So that is, it's pretty impressive. Rod received his MSA from George Washington University, and he currently resides in San Antonio, Texas. So welcome again. Welcome again. I hope I'm not going to put you on the spot. And I know I just read your bios, but if you could just just share with our audience in layman's terms, 60-second elevator pitch. What does your business do today? So in 60 seconds or less, who would like to go first?
Ron, you want to go ahead?
Sure, I can go ahead. I am affiliated with a group called the Self-Management Collaborative, and the business I'm in now is helping businesses to put in place this revolutionary new self-managed network model, or organizations without bosses. I'm currently writing a book called Nobody is Smarter Than Everybody, which is focused on 3 organizations that went from startups to market leaders by using this innovative organizational model to drive their success.
No bosses. Wow.
No bosses.
What a thing.
It's great.
Sounds like entrepreneurs, right?
That's fantastic.
Yes.
I love that. And Mark, give us your layman's terms, in layman's terms, your 60 commercial.
Thank you. Thank you. After selling my business in 2018 and living through the earnout, I really wanted to give back to the industry. There were so many people who were so gracious to me along my 10-year journey of building this business. So essentially, I now use my 30 plus years of background as an entrepreneur, running a business with my own balance sheet at risk, to advise clients on strategic planning, execution strategies, and mergers and acquisitions. The difference is really my experience as an entrepreneur versus that of an employee of a conglomerate. Examples really shine through the full spectrum of situations, from contract review and negotiations to people management and motivational approaches. And many of my people talents come from approaches that I used as a competitive athlete, a team player, and or a coach.
Oh, that's neat. I didn't know that about you. What sport?
I played both soccer and lacrosse at University of California, Berkeley.
Oh, nice. I have 2 boys who played competitive soccer, so spent a lot.
There you go.
I'm a soccer mom. All right. All right. So before we dive into some of the content, I was introducing earlier, I also want people to understand that, as you both shared, you're an entrepreneur too. So in your experience, just real quick, what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges that you have had in the past that you overcame when it came to scaling your business? So just a real quick summary. Mark, can we talk to you about that?
Yeah, sure. So, the headline that you shared about selling the business, another overnight success, right? But the real story is I bought the business in 2009. We paid about $500,000 for it, not much, but it was losing money at the rate of about $3.7 million a year. And that was pretty damn intimidating. Add on to that, 10 months later, I got separated and then divorced. And I walked out of our family home to get another home for me with $1,700 in cash, $400,000 worth of personal debt, and $1.5 million worth of debt on the business. So that was the backdrop of, where the journey sort of began. And what that does is it just creates intense focus. And to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to have a vision, and then you have to attend to that vision with a very, very intense focus. So 10 years later, you can have an overnight success.
I love that. And overnight success, 10, 15, and for some people, taking.
For sure.
And I really appreciate you sharing that, Mark, because I can't even imagine. I'm sure you weren't skipping out of the house every day, just being Mr. Joy, going through such personal and business challenges. So this is, I love that, just knowing that about you, that it wasn't always downhill, smooth riding, it wasn't always easy. There are hard, difficult points. And for many challenges, those seasons can take months and sometimes years. So I appreciate you sharing that. Rod, tell us about a difficult challenge you went through when you were scaling your business.
Well, it's still a current item. When I left the corporate world in 2007, we had immense success employing this self-managed network model. And my feeling was this is magic. We got to get this out there. And so for the last 15 years, it has, and I like that you wanted us to think about in terms of, there is an overnight success that happens over years. This is still a work in progress in that the greatest challenge is getting business leaders to think differently about what management is. And so we are still looking for people who are willing to make the transformation. I think it will happen, all right? And I think prime candidates are startups or companies considering being ESOP. But the mindset challenge is not to equate management with control.
Okay, just so some of our listeners might not know what ESOP is, if you can explain.
Oh, I'm sorry, an employee
acronym.
stock ownership program. Thank you.
Yes.
It's oftentimes successful founders will want to turn their company over to the employees. And so they'll set up employee stock ownership programs. But the great challenge is getting managers to understand management is not control. It's about expanding consciousness, especially in a rapidly changing world. And you can't do that if you set up command and control structures, because what you will do is you will bake in the unconscious biases of the leaders, and the other people in the organization have no opportunity to challenge them. And that needs to be done in rapidly changing times. In networks, anyone can challenge anyone else. And so you're able to tap into a higher level of intelligence, which is collective intelligence, which kind of combines the strengths of people. It's what entrepreneurs see when they start their businesses.
Right.
And so what self-managed organizations can do is they're able to keep that spirit alive when you have to scale to large numbers. And so we're still looking for someone who, when they get to the point that they have to organize because their numbers are getting large, to not build a hierarchy, but instead build a network.
This is going to be a big paradigm shift for a lot of owners. And Mark, you were going to say something. What was your thought?
I really respect what Roger shared. And I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I really want to be managed today.
Yeah.
The problem with hierarchies is you create two classes of people, the powerful and the powerless. And why is it that 2/3 of people are not engaged? Why did we have the Great Resignation? Why are we having quietly quitting? Because people feel powerless. The thing about self-managed networks is everyone has the opportunity to be powerful. And that makes the organization more powerful. And that's what startups see when they start. When you are 10, 12 people, although there may be a founder, that's not really a boss. There's lots of interaction back and forth, lots of bumping of heads. Diversity of opinion is welcome, and that's how the company grows.
Okay, hold that thought.
Sure.
Because now we want to see if we can apply that concept to the immediate challenges that owners are facing. So let's start from the beginning of the scaling challenge. And that would be, okay, let's meet them where they are. They're having a hard time finding the right candidates. They're overwhelmed with, fielding so many resumes or having to go through so many resumes, figure out which one they're interested in, the interviewing process, or trying to run the business, or trying to manage the current people. They have openings that they need to fill. Maybe they need a VP of sales or a VP of marketing. Maybe they need a general manager, whatnot. So they're struggling to find the right talent. And what I love about even this sort of context of masterminding is that we're able to tackle the challenge from two very different, and maybe three different points of view, different perspectives, different experiences, insights, advice. So let me start with Mark on what are your insights. Maybe have you ever had this problem in the past? Having the challenges, how did you tackle it? You're struggling to find the right candidates. How did you tackle it? And maybe it's, especially now, more people want to work remote. they're a small business, so maybe they can't stay competitive with the higher pay that larger companies. So what did you do?
So the Pacific Union, the business that I was in, was residential real estate. But I always shared with my team that we are not, the leadership team, we are really not in the real estate business. We are in the people business. And because everything that we do is dependent on the people. And I always shared that I needed the team way more than the team needed me. But the way that we attracted talent was with our vision. Where are we going? People want to be part of a vision. They want to be part of a sense of community. Rod calls it a network. They want to be part of that, and they want to contribute to it, and they want to be deemed part of the success. So taking a vision and turning it into a shared vision where everybody contributes is a way to attract the best talent. And one of the only rules that we ever had in business is when we get together as a team, and somebody puts a good idea on the table, it was the team's responsibility to turn it into a great idea. And if you have that vision, then attracting people to contribute to that becomes so much easier.
Wow. So did you communicate that vision in the job description or during the interview?
It's all of the above. It has to be present every day. Vision is important on sunny days and rainy days. You know, you can't just pull it out on sunny days. So it has to be articulated as part of, if you're using a headhunter, the recruiter needs to know that vision, and they have to be able to pick up the phone and articulate that vision. When the people show up in the interview process, the person that's interviewing has to have the consistent view, right? They have to articulate it the exact same way. So it's intrinsic in all aspects of recruiting and therefore in retention once you get the people on board.
Can you give us an example? So what was the way that you articulated your vision? You know, just a couple sentences.
It really comes down to that we always empowered people to make decisions as close to the client or the consumer as possible, not from a hierarchical structure. That let's make our decisions as close to someone as possible. And if you're hiring someone to run a region or run a marketing department or run the finance group, empower them to make the decisions. And people love to be in that situation. I mean, to the point earlier that Rod made, you know, nobody really wants to be managed. People want to contribute. And that's the environment we tried to set up.
All right.
Actually, we didn't try to set it up. We set it up and we consistently, empowered it and embraced it.
So the vision was the big key. All right. Awesome. So Rod, I think I know a good part of what you'll share, but so how can people with your different way, the non-managed organization, how can the business owner who just thinks I need to hire an employee, how do you attract that right candidate?
Let me give some very specific examples, and I want to push back on a couple of concepts.
Love it.
And the concepts are VP and job descriptions. Those are categories that are meaningful within hierarchical structures. They're meaningless in network structures. Bill Gore was an entrepreneur in 1958, walked away from DuPont Company, started a business in his basement. It is now an 11,000 person company in 30 countries around the world, a $3 billion enterprise, has made a profit in every year of its existence. This is how Bill built his organization. His primary guidepost was no single person will have the authority to kill a good idea or keep a bad idea alive, because that's what VPs have the authority to do. No one in his organization will have a meaningful title within the organization other than associate. Work will be organized by teams. The teams will be responsible for their own activities, for coming up with ideas, marketing them. Work cross-functionally, not functionally. And this has been immensely successful. They're the first company to meaningfully do this. They did start as an entrepreneurial startup, and they're still around today. And
so what happens for the smaller side business owner who has 3 employees and they just need to hire somebody who knows what they're doing for marketing? So they're not going to be there's no cross-functional marketing team. It's just
teams will hire for the skills they need. All right. And the other thing too is they're going to work in terms of combining their knowledge. So when this person comes in and with a marketing expertise, they won't necessarily make the marketing decisions unilaterally. They will bring their expertise into the teams, because another thing networks do is they combine the knowledge of experts and non-experts.
So what team? So let's talk about, an organization, a business that has 3, 6 people. What team would that marketing hire? What team would they be on?
So if a company is small with 5 or 6 people, that's your team. And so the whole team would be.
The marketing person is making their marketing decisions with the office manager, the sales manager, and the owner.
The marketing person doesn't make unilateral decisions in a network. They bring their knowledge to the team, and the team decides what the decision rights will be. And so the team may decide that we're going to entrust this decision to you. Or the team may decide we all need to participate in this decision, bring in your expertise. So decision-making is really done at the team level in networks.
And what about the execution? So if they need to hire somebody because there's a strategy execution gap, and they need implementers, they're hiring 1 person, 2 people, and they just need to get stuff done.
Yeah.
How is your approach?
If you're missing skills, then you'll go out and hire those. The difference is the team does the hiring. It doesn't go through a bureaucratic process.
So if the current team is office manager, sales manager, field manager, let's say, okay, and then the owner. So let's say right now it's those 4. Are you saying in the approach that you're trying to teach that it's those 4 people, they all decide who they're going to bring and add to the team to fill the spot to the market?
Everyone on the team would participate. That's right. And also if an organization that small is having those roles, it may already begin setting itself up for failure, because it's setting itself up with a hierarchical structure on a small scale. And if they fall into that trap and get large, they will kill the innovative entrepreneurial spirit that they had as their organization becomes bureaucratized. And so it's very important to constantly keep the focus on we work in the context of teams. And as they get larger, then just begin adding more teams. And in networks, these teams are autonomous and need to maintain a high degree of autonomy. And that's what keeps energy up. That's what keeps the engagement of the people up. And this was the experience of W.L. Gore and Associates, the makers of Gore-Tex. That's how.
So I think what I'm hearing is, if our viewers are trying to apply this to the context of their problem. So if they're having a problem attracting top talent, the talent pool is small, all that kind of stuff. So with your approach, one of the ways they can attract is certainly by expressing that, hey, this is our culture. We are a team organization. You do not have a boss.
That's correct.
You don't have a boss. So if they don't have a boss, can they not get fired? Do they not have performance reviews?
The team can fire them.
Okay.
And often what happens is in these organizations.
Kind of like having a board to report to.
I'm sorry?
Is it kind of like having a board to report to?
What it is your accountability is to peers rather than bosses. And that is much more productive, because if I'm working for a boss, I can take the attitude, I work for that person, the rest of you be damned. And I've seen that happen in corporations all the time. If I'm accountable to peers on a team, I and everyone else on that team has to find a way to balance all the needs at work. And that usually works out in the best interest of the customers. And it also leads to higher level solutions, because oftentimes when people think differently, you have paradoxes. So rather than saying we're going to select A over B, you find a way, how do we blend A and B? And that's where breakthrough thinking happens. It's what innovative startup teams do naturally. They already do that behavior. What you want to do is have a structure that will scale it.
Awesome. This has to like process in a lot of people's minds who, including mine, who are just so used to 20 and 30 years of this is a silo. Now, I don't always call it a hierarchy in my head. Sometimes I think of it more as a silo, a department, areas of expertise. So the person who has the gift of administration, that is their silo. The person who has the gift of managing all the details of operations, that's their silo. And you are really trying to open everybody's thinking to being it almost like a family, I suppose, right? So, all right, I want to move on to the next, because we had a bunch of challenges I promised we would cover. So the next one. So, all right, finding right candidates. Mark, your insight and advice, what worked for you is really being deliberate, intentional, and consistent throughout the hiring process to communicate a vision that people can get excited about. So the vision, that is a big thing, especially now with the Great Resignation. People are resigning because it's not about just the money. If they hate what they're doing, or there's got to be some meaning, greater good. And Rod, your contribution is really to have people open up their mind to changing the way that their whole organization is structured and how everybody relates to each other, and there's no boss. Mm-hmm. That is really fascinating. Can you imagine? I know you didn't like the word job description, but you got to post something, right, on Indeed or something like that. So if you had something on your job description that said there is no boss, this is our culture, we have no boss, we're a peer network of team players, I think that sure will get their attention. Okay, moving on to the next challenge. Okay, do you have any thoughts, insights about for companies who are getting barraged with candidates who just mostly want to work remote? People want to work remote, but the founder needs their people to work in person, come to the office, come to the business. What do you have to say about that? So Mark, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, each business is different, right? So I don't think there's a one size fits all model, but I think the second or third year of owning Pacific Union, we closed the corporate headquarters office and we had everybody go to one of our branches that was closest to their home and work there, so that they were sitting in a cube, around the real estate professionals and therefore the clients, and they would listen and they would observe. So we have been in a decentralized, if you will, model since 2014. Now COVID changed that a lot again, where nobody could go to the office, whether it was a branch or a headquarters. And all of us as human beings love that sense of community. We love that collaboration. But I don't think that needs to be changed to say, get in your car an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, come to the office to get that. We have to figure out different ways to get that. So I looked at the decentralization as empowering. I looked at it as a way to attract talent that didn't want to drive an hour, but wanted to stay in a local region. And then we just complemented that with literally social gatherings once in a while to get the team together so that they could meet the person who has primary responsible for marketing or primary for finance. And so we looked at it as an empowering event rather than one that created drag on the business.
Awesome. So changing how they look at the situation, because I do think there are a number of owners who have that fear of, if they work remote, they're not going to get anything done. They're just going to be sleeping in or multitasking with, I don't know, taking their dog for a walk or something. So there's that fear.
Well, that might be hiring the wrong person though. So there's there are people that could be at the centralized location and not getting anything done, right? So I think it comes down to, you got to hire the right people.
Mark, just saying that, I think will help half of those people who are hung up on the subconscious fear that, oh my gosh, if they work remote, they're going to be less productive. And so that's really important mindset shift that that's about hiring the right people. If you hire the right people, they're going to be productive no matter what context they're in, remote or working in a building. Rod, do you have any thoughts on dealing with candidates who only want to work remote and a company who wants them to come in person?
A couple of thoughts. One, why is it that so many people want to work remote? And I think if we get behind that, what they experienced in COVID was what they didn't have in the office, a sense of autonomy. We underappreciate how much autonomy is important. And that second thought about remote, it works for established processes.
Mm-hmm.
For stuff you can do in your cubicle, you can do at home. It doesn't work for creative work. And this is something I think the tech companies are understanding because they're on the edge of innovation. You need serendipity and emergence for innovation. That means you need people who are knocking against each other. I think Mark's comment gave us insight into where we're going and the best way to handle this. When Mark said, and I think this is where we'll move to, it's kind of a both and. To the extent you can work remotely, that you're working on routine tasks, let people have the space to do that. But but it is important to bring people together on a periodic basis so that they are exchanging ideas and bumping up against each other, because that's where the seeds of innovation happen. And so I think what we're likely to see is we're going to see a reduction of office space. And I think the accountants are going to drive that. Why should we spend this money? And I think we will probably see an increase in conference type spaces, not small conference room, but large conference venues where we can bring together larger numbers of people so you can have this bouncing of ideas. And so maybe every 2 or 3 months, you bring people together for 2 or 3 days. And the energy that you get out of that will give people a sense of co-autonomy. And then as they're working remotely, they have this sense of autonomy. And another word Mark used that I thought really is important is these aren't employees, they're contributors. And I thought that was a good term that Mark used.
You're right. I appreciate you highlighting that, because that does put someone in a completely different mindset where they feel valuable because they're contributing. You're calling them a contributor. And I think just by the sheer fact of calling them a contributor, they kind of have this internal drive to say, what did I contribute today? How did I contribute? And how can I contribute? Mm-hmm. That gets a different behavior than I'm just clocking my time.
And then one other thought, when you have these coming togethers, and I saw this was a process I used inside Blue Cross Blue Shield when we operated as a network. We'd have these 2 or 3 day collective intelligence workshops. But then when people left them and went to the different locations, they started calling each other, okay? Because they began bouncing ideas. And so this coming and going that Mark described enables that dynamic to go on. And that's also another source of innovation.
Well, your point about autonomy, giving people more autonomy, it really segues nicely to the next problem or challenge of attracting top talent for SMB owners. One of the most common being, how do I stay competitive to the pay? How can I get somebody to want to leave their company and work for our company when they're making more money, or I can't offer them more money? And so definitely I can see that if they feel like they're being micromanaged at the other place, that extra money might not really be worth it to have somebody, breathing down their neck. So that's definitely one way to stay competitive or attract people without having to offer a higher pay. Any other insights, things that you've tried that you found worked, Mark, in helping you attract talent that you didn't have to offer, a higher pay than what they were currently earning at a similar company?
I never really found that the primary reason people leave their place of employment or their community where they work is because of financial reasons. I think it's more of them being empowered to contribute. And I firmly believe that if you give people the opportunity to succeed, and that they will. Otherwise, you've hired the wrong people. And then we would always give our people a piece of the profits. So if together we can make a more financially vibrant organization, then let's share some of that vibrance proportionately with the people that contributed to it. And that is something that most companies don't offer, especially small businesses, that are just getting started. But if over a 3-year period, you can grow a business to be vibrant, however you describe vibrant, share some of that with the people that made it happen, and they'll be there doing it again for the next 13 years, not 3.
Nice. So you did ESOP too, or did you do it differently?
It wasn't an ESOP. Everybody participated in the successful EBITDA, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Right. So if they're earning a piece of that, they sure want to make sure that the company is growing and continuing.
Absolutely. It aligns interests, and it gives people the ability to make sort of chunks of money, if you will, as opposed to just every 2 weeks. Which provides for college educations, it provides for cars, it provides for maybe down payments on homes over time. So those are things that really define quality of life.
And that, of course, then just circles and fuels back to this whole team concept of, hey guys, as a company, we're not going to be able to grow if we don't all pull our weight together,
Yep.
And that might be more of a strenuous kind of a metaphor, but if we don't all contribute from our areas of strength together. So it really is a team effort. And that's important to actually sit there and to dwell on that, because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with business owner clients where they're truly hung up on, I just don't believe I'm going to attract good talent if I can't. How am I gonna get them to leave their current company if I can't even match what they're earning or offer them more? And to what you just said, Mark, people don't really leave companies because of what they're, for financials, for making it. It's they leave companies for people. They leave companies for all sorts of reasons. Dissatisfaction. And any other things that we haven't discussed yet on how owners can really think about attracting that top talent, a higher level talent, but they don't necessarily need to do that. So we talked, so far we've discussed being able to communicate that autonomy, culture, right? The team culture, giving them some stock, profit sharing in the company's success. Any other thoughts, strategies, tactics that you've done in the past that's also been very helpful in attracting a higher level talent?
Well, I can share with you, I'm sure Rod has thoughts on this, but I can share with you sort of the attributes of the individual that I would recruit and hire, because I think it's really, really important. And there's 3 characteristics that I always look for in every person that joined the team. And I also articulated this to the leadership, to the other people that are doing, the recruiting. And that is, I always look for someone that had a competitive stripe in their character. Mm-hmm. What did you compete at? What were you really good at? Did you win a championship? Did you win an award? Whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be sports, but I have to see that they're a competitor. Number 2, what decisions did they make that were based on instincts? It wasn't just facts that were available to them, but they made a career change. They moved from one state to the next, but they did it based on, I just sort of felt like this was the right thing to do. So that would be number 2. And number 3 would be that they have the confidence to take advantage of number 1 and number 2. A lot of people are competitors. A lot of people have instincts, but they don't put the 2 together and take a leap and make the decision. How many people had the idea of X before X became popular? I was going to do Uber. Well, you didn't, just things like that. You have to have the confidence to act.
Yes. I love that. Because that gets into their interpersonal skills, or personality traits, or strengths, or character. I love that. Rod, any other final thoughts on attracting higher level talent?
A couple of thoughts here. This issue of money. Okay. A few years I ran across a study that I thought it came to an insightful conclusion. There's always a debate. What matters more, money or recognition? And the study said they're not, neither one is the most important thing. The most important thing is very simple. People want a sense that they're working people who know what they're doing. And people, because that gives you a sense of accomplishment. People who know what they're doing get things done. And we don't come to work to do meaningless work. We want to see it go somewhere. And people will work for less money if they are in an environment where people know what they're doing. And so bridging off of that to building on Mark's comment, I think it's important to see people can achieve, can accomplish, are motivated, but also can they work well in teams? Because if I hire the smartest person in the world, but they can't work on a team, they're useless. Their knowledge doesn't go anywhere. And I firmly do believe nobody's smarter than everybody. So a team of smart individuals, they don't have to be the brightest bulbs in the world, but basically smart individuals, there's lots of evidence that say they will outperform any smart individual. And so you want to build a confident, competent, highly effective teams that can compete in the marketplace. And their sense of competition is external and not internal.
I love that. And so they really need to be coachable. You know, if they're going to work with a team, they can't be that know-it-all. And they also need to be humble where they're trying to, they're going to serve, not, they're going to do the things that's going to be for the good of the team, the good of the organization, and not just always focused on what's in it for me. You know, going over and beyond and those types of attributes. Good stuff, really good stuff. So talk to us about, let's move on to the, I'd like to address some of the challenges that some small business owners have who are in that transition stage where they're trying to grow, but their, you know, budget is tight. They know they need to maybe hire somebody to be in the function of maybe driving sales. Have you had that challenge in the past?
Sure.
How to fund, how to pay these people, especially when maybe that sales cycle is pretty long. Mark, how did you handle it?
Well, I was fortunate to have a business that had substantial revenues when I acquired it, and so my initial challenge was fitting the expenses inside the revenues. So we did some downsizing. But then to hire the right people for growth, obviously, number one is the right people. But sometimes for an entrepreneur, it's really intimidating to look at the headline number of what that individual is going to cost, whatever that may be. You know, is it six figures? Is it, what is it? And if you look at the headline number, it can be intimidating. But if you look at it on a monthly basis or an every 2-week basis, it's far more easy to digest. And then you can translate that into how many units of sales, whatever that might be, that generates revenue, do I need to offset that? So there's an interdependency between those two things. And so breaking it down into much smaller pieces could become more palatable. Now, if your sales cycle, to your point, is 18 months, okay, your headline number is real, right? And so how are you going to finance the headline number? Is it through, are you going to take on debt? Are you going to raise capital? Are you going to reduce other expenditures? So there's just a lot of very fluid decision-making that needs to go on.
Right. And I do think, actually, I was going to share a couple things, but Rod, let me have you contribute first.
I think with respect to sales, it's important. Don't focus on the product, focus on the job to be done. And salespeople should be treated as important input into the strategic process. And that often doesn't happen. A lot of companies, here's the salesman, just go sell the product. That's it. That's all we want you to do. Well, they were doing that at Kodak. But then the whole paradigm shifted with the digital cameras. And here's the irony. Kodak invented the digital camera. But they couldn't listen to their salespeople, okay? They didn't use them as a resource to say the whole thing is going to be changing. And so salespeople, it's a two-way street. It's not just what you want them to push out into the market. It's a conduit into what is the market telling us And oftentimes they're the ones who see changes first.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. In addition to both of that, the thing that I wanted to also comment on is I'm always surprised how valuable it is to just go through and review the basics. Just like in your soccer days, Mark, I watched my boys on the field. Their coaches were always drilling them on the basics. That's in their warm up, and they're doing it over and over and over again, no matter, at every age and stage that they were in their skill level. So anyways, so if people are thinking, oh gosh, I don't know if I can commit, that's a big chunk to take on to pay for their salary for these 2 or 3 more new hires. I found the basics of evaluating their P&L, their profit and loss statements, and looking for what expenses are a little bit bloated that we could shrink down. And, a lot of times they haven't even looked at their technology or even, considered that they can get the same thing done with a lot less if they're just changing products or vendors. So taking a look at the profit and loss. The other aspect some people haven't done yet is, go get a loan, go get a business loan to carry you through. And it's going to pay back when you hire these people and they put the work in. So the third best practice that I often see not being done is just are you putting money back into the business? There's still some people out there who have the mindset that, every profits that the business has, they're just going to put it into the founder's salary. So surprisingly, there are people who forget that you're supposed to put money back into the business so you can let that grow. And obviously talking to your CPA is going to help you with the money strategy and your financial advisor. But just going back to the basics and saying, all right, where am I? Did we do all the check marks? Did we cross all of our T's and dot all of our I's on that? So that's as far as, funding new hires. I think a big way that I see clients trying to fund those new hires is hiring younger people who they think they can pay less. And what are your thoughts on that? On top of, I'll dovetail that with 2 questions. When you were talking about autonomy, and especially if they're hiring, let's say, recent college grads or somebody that doesn't have that much experience yet, they really want things. I find a lot of owners want their people, their new hires, to follow their system, to do their process, particularly, specifically if it's like a sales team. Just do it the way we do it. Don't introduce any other new ideas because we know this works. And that's why there's a little bit of that micromanaging involved. And I'm not sure how they would be autonomous when the philosophy is, here's the playbook. We want you to follow the playbook. So talk to us about your thoughts on that.
The playbook is oftentimes the problem and is what's driving the financial issues. Let me give you a very specific example. Bertzog is a home health nurse company in Belgium. It was started by Joost de Blanc, who said the process as they do things stinks. So he goes out and as an entrepreneur, he says, we're going to do it differently. He puts in place a self-managed network. He organizes nurses into teams of 10 to 12, and they fully are autonomous on how they're going to hire, schedule, do their work. They cut costs by 35%. Why? Because in the old mechanical way of running things, nurse A would visit the patient on Monday, nurse B on Wednesday, and nurse C on Friday. Well, when the team structured it, nurse A will see this person all 3 days. And by doing that, they reduced the amount of care people needed because they got well better. Because that human connection matters. Mm-hmm. And that's how they reduce costs. Today, 70% of the home health nurses in Belgium work for Bertzog. They went from startup to employing 70% and reduced the cost of this industry by 35%.
That's significant.
Yeah, because this is what teams will do. People close to the work know how best to organize it, not people who are far away from the work. And in the process of organizing, they will find more cost-effective ways to do it merely by designing it better. And that's what the Birdsong example shows.
I love that. I love that.
I'm going to become one of your disciples, Rod.
Mark, I would love to connect with you.
Yeah. No, I think that, if you're a new entrepreneur or you're building a young business, good ideas and good people will pay for themselves. Don't let finance or constrain your thinking. Think freely. Think about the future. There are many people on my payroll that I paid way more than I paid myself in the first 3 or 4 years, because I empowered them to go out and get stuff done. And I think I shared with you earlier that, like what Rod just says, we made decisions as close to the client as possible, not from, an ivory tower. And so don't let money confine your vision and your thinking.
Yeah. In hierarchies, the design principle is trust authority. And what that means is we only trust the people at the top. We don't trust most of the people in the organization. The design principle for networks is nobody is smarter than everybody, and they trust all of their people. And this trust pays itself back in better processes that will reduce costs.
And one other thing along those lines is, don't go and ask your top performers and your best employees for ideas on the business unless you're willing to listen. Because it is a death knell to go to them and say, what should we do differently to be better? They give you all this feedback and you put it in the circle and go hit the playbook again. Wait a second, you just asked us for ideas. And to the Kodak point, maybe you should have listened. So don't ask questions unless you're really willing to listen and act.
Yes.
So yes, being open-minded, you got to check yourself. Self-check on how coachable are you and how open-minded are you to ideas that are outside of your normal thinking. Now,
Yeah.
Mark, I love that you empower your people, and I'm a big believer in, yes, your people do need to be empowered, encouraged, inspired, all of that. But not every business owner feels that they have the skill set to empower. And then the other bucket of owners kind of have that philosophy. I can just hear, a lot of the people I work with saying, I love this philosophy of self-managed because it's right up their alley of, they're writing in their job descriptions, you need to be self-motivated. I'm hiring you. It's a set it and forget it kind of a thing. You do your job and I'm not going to I don't want to manage you. So they're all on board on self-managed, and yet it's on the other sort of end of the spectrum. There's no coaching or empowerment or guidance or leadership or any of that. So how would you balance the two, Rod, between what does it really mean? Does self-managed mean self-motivated and you don't have to manage them at all?
Self-management means everyone in the organization is a manager. And everyone is responsible for results. Everyone's expected to contribute. Everyone is able to make agreements with anyone else about the work we do. And the way that they're held accountable is the market. And so compensation is also done on a collective intelligence basis. And you're not going to receive good compensation if you're not accomplishing results. Networks are actually far more efficient in market activity than hierarchies, because they adapt quickly. They recognize when something isn't working, they stop doing it, and then move on to things that do. In Gore, for example, how do you start a project? When you get enough people to come to the meeting. When do you end it? When people stop coming, because they're motivated to do work that will deliver results, and they're holding each other accountable on a real-time basis. You really can trust people. Most people who work in organizations are incredibly bright, incredibly motivated. You can trust them, but you need the right structures. This is not a free-for-all. It is a balance between the autonomous individual and the collective intelligence of the team operating as a team in the marketplace.
I love how you say that, the collective intelligence of the team, because I say that a lot as far as, why people join mastermind groups. Why do business owners join mastermind groups? Is because they want to tap into the collective wisdom of other business owners. And so this is a new expression, tapping into the collective wisdom of the team that isn't really out there as much, in organizations. So I love that. That's a powerful shift in the way they think about their people. So I can't believe we're at the top of the hour. There's so much more I would love to just, dive into. We could talk about this for weeks, I'm sure. So just in wrapping up, just a short final message. We covered a lot of the challenges and talking about how are they going to attract the right people, building the dream team so they can scale their business. Mark, you talked about, of course, that you need to make sure you hire the right person. So just in wrapping up, what would be a short insight or tip on how do they know they hired the right person? You did talk about looking for things like, are they competitive in sports? Is there anything else that you can give them that they can implement that will help them have the confidence that they hired the right person?
I could just give you two simple thoughts. First is, it's just like another overnight success. Not every hire is successful. I think my third CFO was the one that was actually successful. And so I was not gifted at hiring to that position because what was my role in that person's lack of success? It wasn't just him or her, right? So, you're not going to get it right every time, but act quickly. B and C performers cost the company a lot more money than hiring an A performer that you might have to pay up for. And if you have the competitive stripe, if you have the instincts and you have the confidence, then you have to start.
Okay. B and C, yes, identify your B and C's and invest in your A's. It's worth it. All right, Rod, final thoughts on?
I think look for people who can act and work autonomously and can work well in the sandbox, can work well with others. And excuse my little dog in the background.
It's just cute entertainment,
I know we have somebody coming to the front door and she's our substitute for a doorbell.
Hey, that's working remote, right? It's right. Life. It's life. We all have that. I'm surprised my dog didn't come to my office. Well, it has really been a robust discussion. I really appreciate the two of you sharing about your insights, your advice, your experience, your philosophies. And I know that our audience is taking away a ton. And it just that, even if you just take away one nugget, one paradigm shift, that's going to pay for itself, in the weeks and months to come. So if people would like to reach out and learn more about you, get in touch, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you, Mark?
Mark McLaughlin, LinkedIn. My website is McLaughlin-ventures.com. However you want to do it.
Awesome. Great. Rod?
Same here. I'm on LinkedIn and my website is rodcollins.net.
Okay, rodcollins.net. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this roundtable discussion. I'd love to get your input for people who are watching. Please, share a comment below. What did you get out of this discussion? What are you going to implement? What was a big paradigm shift? I also like you to share any questions that you have about anything Mark or Rod had shared in today's discussion. So that's it for today. And thanks. Join us. Make sure you join us for next time. Take care, everybody.